Hi everybody, welcome to Sprueverse, my scale model universe, and here we are, the completion of the bubble ship from the 2013 Tom Cruise star Oblivion. And this was an all-resin kit, Randy Cooper designed and created, and I will make sure in the description you have all the information you need if you want this kit. Not without its challenges, a lot of fun to build, but I thought we would spend a little time today just sort of talking about that. As you know, when we started this adventure, I went through all the parts in detail just to sort of make sure that, you know, if you'd never done a resin kit before, you sort of knew what to expect and sort of could look at it from a layman's perspective, as I do. I don't claim to be a master modeler. In fact, every day I come to the hobby shop, I hope and expect to learn something. But I've done an awful lot of resin kits over the last few years, and so I've picked up a few techniques and things over the few years, and there's some traps you can fall into as well. And there's a level of expectation when you get these kits. So I just wanted to sort of go into that a little bit today and talk about some of the challenges that I had with this kit. The first thing I wanted to talk about was the main kind of body of this kit, the two engine balls and these two pieces in the center here, which I'm going to refer to as the backbone. They came in two pieces. There was a bar that essentially was supposed to go through this body and connect to the two balls. Now, the reason for that, obviously, is from an engineering perspective. The thought was that in the film, these engines would rotate depending on whether it was taking off, landing, or flying, you know, through the clouds. So there was an awful lot of control of the attitude of this ship from these rotating balls. An interesting engineering theory. Also, in the front here, the gun emplacements rotate as well, and I'll show you that here. They are connected and they allow you to actually rotate the seats inside the bubble, and that's kind of cool. And that was relatively easy to achieve. It's one solid piece of resin that went through the frame, and then the guns themselves actually hold the whole thing together and allow you to turn it freely. I had a challenge with these balls and that bar. If you recall, my bar came bent. And I suspect one of the issues was that when the actual two resin pieces were sort of molded, the first issue was that only one half of this particular kit's mold was drilled out. I'm not sure why, but it wasn't square to the actual rib itself, the actual body. It was off slightly, which meant that it explained why my bar had been bent, I guess to try and get everything level again. But you know, once you start bending and doing all those sorts of things, I think you're kind of in trouble. So I made a decision to actually cut my bar in half, which allowed me to get a slightly better attitude on level. But then I did have to go back in with a grinding instrument. I use my Proxon, which is my go-to, because I can control the speed of this. You want to be on a very, very slow speed when you're grinding resin, because you can take off too much material too fast and then you're in a world of hurt. So essentially that's what I did, and I was able to get some level back, although it's not perfect and it never will be. I also, in my cleanup, struggled with some of the details. I was just going to lose them and never be able to get them back. These molds, you know, sometimes they deteriorate, and when they do, you're kind of stuck between a rock and a hard place as to whether or not you can put something back with maybe some Milliput or maybe some epoxy sculpt or something like that. Sometimes you can, sometimes you just can't, and you got to move on. But you know, here's what I'd say about that. These are artists' interpretations of things. They're not maquettes made for a movie, and they are not a licensed model kit. And all licensed model kits have their own issues. So I always look at these things through the lens of it's a work of art and approach it that way. Do the best you can, and ultimately what you'll end up with is a really fun representation of, I think, a very cool movie spaceship. I've always, always thought since I saw the movie that I really love this design, and I really appreciate the fact that Randy went out of his way to do something that allowed us to actually enjoy a model from this particular movie. A couple of things. I did have to end up adding a little antenna here. I used some guitar string wire. I always love that for my antennas. It's really sort of a good way to go. And there's a couple here. One that looks like an air. It's bent on an L, and I think it's supposed to represent some kind of an air speed indicator of some kind. Here, I'll put this on PhilCam quickly and point this out to you. You can see that right there. There it is there. So that was a lot of fun to sort of put the antennas in. There's one on that side, and of course there is one right there, and then above that there's a handle. There's two handles on both sides, and so those were some of just the smaller details that I had to work out for this kit. I've done a little bit of weathering, basically some pastels and some Tamiya smoke, because I just felt like, if you look at the film, there was bad weather. There was some times where they went into volcanic areas, and so you are going to get you're going to get some streaking and some smudging and some hits like that when you go into those areas. It's not going to be pristine, but because it's white, it kind of like, it's just sort of in your face. So I've just done a little bit just to indicate some weather hits. The only other thing I wanted to talk about was Vacuform, this Vacuform dome. Now, I've got it as clean as possible, and I am going to do a little more work on it. I've got a little Q-tip and some alcohol that I've mixed with water 50-50, and I find that that's really good in terms of cleaning this kind of Vacuform plastic. You got to be really careful with it. First of all, it scratches like no one's business. So, I'm always petrified when I see my clear plastic parts, because I'm thinking, okay, how long is it going to be before I smudge it, scratch it, or crack it? Because I've done all three, and it's really easy to do. So now I'm super paranoid about it, but you still make mistakes. And one of the biggest mistakes that I think I perhaps made with this is when I was gluing the metal frames here. They're supposed to be the metal frames that hold these together. What I probably should have done is used crystal clear, and then got myself a little rubber band and put it around to hold them in place. I didn't. I used some dabs of CA glue because it's resin on resin, and it holds, and it goes off very quickly, and I thought that's the best way for me to control this. But of course, you've got to be super careful, because anytime CA gets on these Vacuform parts, it's going to craze them and it never comes back. Now, I have had some luck in getting some plastic cleaners to sort of take off some of the surface and get it back to where it's in reasonable shape. But it is a bit of a challenge. And the only other thing I want to say, is if you were to use, for instance, Pledge's floor shine, and you should by rights be able to dip these parts into that and get it crystal clear, and it should get rid of some of the scratches. I had a bit of a challenge. I don't know why. I tested a small part of the Vacuform plastic, and I actually noticed that it was actually streaking. Even though I dipped the whole thing carefully, let it drip off, it finds its own level. Now, I've done it with canopies on planes, and I've also even done it with my Lost in Space Chariot, the whole plastic piece, and I didn't have an issue. So I'm suspicious about this particular kind of Vacuform plastic. I don't know what kind it is, but it reacts to all kinds of chemicals. And in fact, if you look very, very closely at it, even though on camera it's pretty clear, and I'm happy about that, but it does have little striations and pock marks in it that you can't get out. Now, I would argue that that's probably one of the challenges of trying to get something like this to Vacuform, but having said all of that, I just think I think he did a really excellent job with it. I didn't have any issue with the legs, getting the legs to level out. That was no problem for me at all. As I said, you know, at the end of the day, it sort of is what it is. Now, I probably will go back in. I've got a couple of these really cool angled, they're sort of little angle squares that came with my one of my cutters, and they turn out to be perfect shapes for where I've lost some of my lines, panel lines on this ship. So I may go in with a graphite pencil and pick some of those out. I don't think I'm going to use any kind of a pin wash. I think it's too intense for this, although you certainly could. And I did on the gun turret, just to sort of pick that out. I did paint all of that by hand, so it's not the most perfect job. You could actually get some vinyl pin striping from a car dealership, you know, a after-car market shop, and probably do it with pin striping. But sometimes painting things with, you know, with your hand is kind of what model making is all about. And getting steadier with your hand is something I highly recommend if you can. If you can't, no big deal. But there it is, and it was a fun build. It took about 3 weeks from start to finish. Scale of difficulty, I would say on a scale of 1 to 10, this is probably about a 7 plus. And the only reason why I say that is because some of the resin parts need a little bit of grinding and cleaning that takes a lot of time. And if you've never done that before, it can feel a little tedious. And also, if you take off, as I said, too much material, you're kind of in a world of hurt. So that's why I put it at about a 7 plus. But I recommend this kit. I really do. I give it a thumbs up, and I think it's something to be proud of in anybody's collection. I certainly am glad I have it in mine. So there it is. Once again, an all-resin kit from Randy Cooper. It is the bubble ship from the motion picture Oblivion. Thanks for following along on this 3-part series. I really appreciate it. If you just found me, please like and subscribe. I'm also on Instagram @Sprueverse, and my website is sprueverse.com, where I do always do a blog every month and with my finished builds. And I have a lot of details and pictures there. I have guides to glue, guides to paint, and also some interesting cool stuff about tools and stuff that I found along the way that I think might be useful to you. Anyway, I hope it's useful, and I hope you enjoy it. So until our next build, and I'm not entirely sure what that's going to be, although I'm thinking I might be doing a car, guys. I don't know whether it'll be a sci-fi car or something from our past. But I'm definitely thinking about putting that on the bench, and there's a few other things bubbling as well. I'm looking forward to the next build. So until then, as always, guys, be well, be safe. Wally, take care of yourself, man. Build something, and we'll see you next time. Take care, everybody.